This is a sports catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, hello, it's Jeff Cutastrophe. I welcome you to another sports catastrophe on this day. And on this day, June 12th, 1991, Michael Jordan finally reached the pinnacle. He finally gets an NBA title. Michael Jordan's journey to this took some bumps and bruises, especially because of the franchise. But anyway, Michael Jordan was this great player who won the NCAA championship as a freshman in 1982 and actually scored the winning basket. And then a couple years later, he was drafted by the Bulls third overall. Houston passed on him, going for Hakeem Olajuwon, although that was kind of a good move. Portland passed on him because they apparently had some good guards that they didn't want to hurt by either trading them or putting them on the bench. So they basically decided to go with a big man. Because back in the 1980s, if you didn't have a big man, you're basically screwed as an NBA team. So they picked Sam Bowie, who actually was better as a New Jersey Net than a Portland Trailblazer. And then, of course, Chicago drafted Michael Jordan third. MJ was an icon for all icons. And, he helped Chicago out. Chicago basically was an off-again, on-again franchise in the NBA. And basically, if they got him, they picked up a few more pieces along the way, including Scottie Pippen in an 87 draft day trade that was huge. But anyway, the Bulls looked like they were good. They had the talent. They had the pressure. Heck, Michael Jordan even put 63 points up on the Boston Celtics in a playoff game, but still lost in double overtime. Anyway, in 89, the Bulls were finally in flight. Michael Jordan, with the shot over Craig Elo, sent the Bulls to the next round. And then, of course, they got taken out in the conference finals by the Detroit Pistons in 89 and 90. So the Bulls needed to make a change. And basically, Michael Jordan and his teammates agreed that they needed to intimidate Detroit just as much as they're being intimidated by the Pistons. So when they met for the third time in the 91 playoffs, basically Chicago used the tactics on the Pistons. And they got themselves to the finals. Waiting for them, the LA Lakers, the perennial Western Conference superstars. LA was a good franchise and all that, but they became superstars in the 80s. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was traded from Milwaukee to the Lakers in 75. He was still there for the 80s. Magic Johnson was drafted first overall in the 79 draft by the Lakers. They had Byron Scott, James Worthy, who was Michael Jordan's college teammate, ironically enough, A.C. Green, and a lot of other players. So the Lakers almost always went to the finals in the 1980s. It was hard to see a year in the 80s that the Lakers weren't in the finals. But anyway, the Lakers were perennial stars. Even though Abdul-Jabbar retired in 1989, the Lakers still had some flashes of showtime because Magic was still around. So basically, the 91 Lakers looked pretty decent on paper. And all that. So were the 91 Bulls. So when you look at a lot of things and the tail of the tape of the 91 NBA Finals, you have to realize that this was huge. In fact, the 91 NBA Finals was also huge for the fact that NBC was the national broadcaster for the NBA Finals and not CBS. CBS had a long relationship with the NBA, but basically that ended after 17 years, and they haven't got anything since. So anyway, it was Bulls against the Lakers. And as we all know, Michael Jordan won the title. And Magic's last NBA Finals appearance. MJ would be the MVP, no doubt about that. But anyway, the Lakers, this was the last time till 2000, for 9 years that they went to the finals. In fact, the Bulls and Lakers actually met in the playoffs prior to 1991. But Chicago was part of the Western Conference at that time and moved to the East in 1981. So Lakers and Bulls did face each other 4 times in the playoffs, 68, 71, 72, and 73. It's weird how the Bulls were part of the Western Conference. All that. People forget about that. So anyway, the Lakers Showtime era ended in the beginning of the Bulls dynasty. All that. So anyway, The Lakers were third best in the 91 NBA Western Conference behind Portland and San Antonio. Portland was trying to head for their first, would go back to back and go to the finals. But they lost the conference finals to the Lakers. In the East, Chicago was the best team in the conference by far, and only lost one playoff game before the Lakers. That to the Sixers in the conference semis. Bulls and Lakers won on their own court during the regular season. So when you look at the Lakers, it was Eldon Campbell, Flotty Divac, Larry Drew, that guy? Yep. AC Green, Magic Johnson, Sam Perkins, another former teammate of one Michael Jordan, Byron Scott, Tony Smith, Terry Teagle, Irving Thomas, Michael Thompson, and James Worthy. It was huge. And then the Bulls had B.J. Armstrong, Bill Cartwright. No, he's not Canadian. Not that Bill. It's Bill Whittington who's Canadian. Horace Grant, Craig Hodges, Dennis Hobson. I guess he came from the Pistons, if memory serves me right. MJ, Stacey King, Cliff Livingston, John Paxson, Will Perdue, Scottie Pippen, and Scottie Williams. So, yeah, it was chock full of greatness. And, of course, the Bulls ended up winning all of the games at the Great Western Forum, which was shocking enough. So the Bulls used this as a catalyst to win 6 titles in the 1990s, 2 three-peats. While the Lakers, of course, didn't get to the finals to 2000, but they did have their own mini dynasty in the early 2000s, winning 3 straight titles. So anyway, Michael Jordan finally reached the pinnacle, and it brought him to be a better player. Sadly, though, Magic Johnson's swan song would be worse. Later on, as it was revealed, he had the HIV virus, but not AIDS. He doesn't have AIDS to this day. So anyway, that's great. So, yeah, MJ won the title, finally. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.